This show contains profanity, advice you should never follow, humor that you might not enjoy. The names have been changed to protect the guilty. Do not try this at home.
On this week's Pox and Puss podcast, we discuss relationships of all kinds, married, dating, friends, or other. We find out that your lungs adapt. The professor goes through a radioactive mosquito hive. Doing it. Pee bottles. And we find out what happens when Puss's feet get cold and wet. Episode 7A, the old spread and lift.
Yeah, so the Krampus.
Right.
And greetings, Yellow Blazers, Blue Blazers, Krampus lovers, Bell Schnickel haters, Bill Bryson lovers, and Bill Bryson haters. This is the Pox and Puss podcast. My name is Pox Holiday, and sitting to my left is
Puss in Boots.
And today we're going to talk about everything from Baltimore Jack to a couple of books, and we'll be right back. Well, today we're sitting here in the basement, which until 2 days ago was about 2 inches deep in water, as is the lovely aroma down here.
It's not even squishy. Don't exaggerate it.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not except under your seats there. That's where the rug actually stopped the water from flowing in.
Well, good.
But I put down some silica gel packets for some shoes, and they should be good. But don't
eat those.
Anyway, so sitting across from us are two people we've heard from actually on the phone before, the Professor and Peacepipe.
Hi there.
And they're down visiting after Christmas and just kind of visiting the area. Flow Easy from our first episode also lives not too far. We just got finished having drinks and dinner with him. And so we just kind of had them in. We thought we'd talk about some random stuff. This is the first post-Christmas episode. Pre-New Year, post-Christmas.
Woo-hoo.
And I saw a lot of people on Instagram were posting pictures of, here I am, here's my Christmas gifts I got, getting ready for the AT.
Woo-hoo.
You know, everything from map books to planning guides.
I got a ShamWow.
My favorite, though, was a glass coffee press, like a
Wow,
French press.
That's super.
It's like, I got everything. I'm ready for
a Bowden, no doubt.
A Bodum, a glass.
I got a small, personal-sized cast iron skillet for my time on the trail. I have seen that on trail.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were saying that because I actually did get a small cast iron skillet for Christmas.
Are you stalking me? Because that'd be super. No.
I just want to say,
did.
nothing wrong with a French press. I don't know.
Well,
about the
Lexan
glass,
maybe.
though.
There are some highly portable
Yeah.
French presses on the market.
Yeah, and that was not one of them. But
No.
but yeah, so it's funny. You see the pictures start to pop up, and it's
But
just,
it's a one-person version. That means it's backpackable.
it was really about the size of like one of those small cans of beer.
That just
like
makes
an
it-
8 or 10 ounce
That
little
just
thing.
makes it darling. That doesn't make it packable.
But so it's getting close to that time. We've seen a spike in listeners and hits and that kind of thing, and so it can only mean one thing: people gearing up for the old AT.
Yay!
And actually, we have somebody here with us. The Professor is going to be leaving this March.
It's true.
Yeah, become a
3-time Grandmaster if I complete.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
There's a good chance I'll wind up in a crumpled heap in a ditch somewhere.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, exactly. We have
but
a pool started.
I have my goal is to at least get to trail days, and then if I'm still grooving on things, I'll carry on. And if I'm not, then I'll take that point to relax and maybe think of something else to do.
Now I know you're taking the same pack.
I am taking the same pack. I like my old pack. It's a frame pack.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of scoffing at the frame pack. But then, of course, in the middle of the summer, when all the people with the internal frames have the red outline on the back of the, what do you call that, the heat rash,
Yeah.
that's when I'm laughing at them. So I like my frame pack. And it creaks a little bit, and it's old, and it's kind of cobbled together, and that's parts and pieces from 5 different packs from going back all the way to my Boy Scout days. But I've upgraded the important stuff like the hip belt and the shoulder straps. And
Nice.
So it's my pack.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, you guys hiked in 1998, the same year that I did. Finished about 6 days, I think.
September
ahead.
29th.
Yeah, so right about 6 or 7 days before me. And it was your honeymoon, correct?
More or less.
Yeah.
We got married the October before 1997, and it was 6 months on the trail is about the equivalent of 5 years of marriage.
Agreed.
And if you can't figure it out, then you're not supposed to be married.
You're right. Yep. Yeah, it seems that way.
Yeah.
It also makes me think about all the people that, like, even just start with a friend. You know, like they start with a friend, and at the end of it, they can't do it.
Well, I had some very strong thoughts because that was my second through hike on that. And we shared nothing except a tent. She had her own stove, and she did her own food.
I saw and heard way too many arguments about who took the last Snickers bar. I was like,
Yeah.
Not gonna do it.
buy my own Snicker bar, you buy your own, we're good.
Couples and teams were tough.
That's
Yeah.
really
Whether it was husband and wife, brother and sister, best friends, it was always. Did you
well.
see that, Puss?
Oh, absolutely. I know that when I got home, I gave a lot of talks on my experience, and people always ask, like, what would you bring? Like, what would you definitely bring, and what would you definitely leave behind? And the first thing I always said, what would I leave behind, was the people I love, like, because I love them, but I probably wouldn't love them that far into my hike. I have tremendous respect for anybody that can hike with somebody else, and I did much better backpacking in groups before my hike, and now it's really difficult for me sometimes to, like, I plan a trip with some friends and I find myself being very irritated with people I love because it's just not the same.
Right.
And I definitely, like anybody, I met people that I hiked with for long periods of time while I was on trail, but a long time for anybody on trail is like a month. So and those are some of the best relationships I've ever had in my whole life. Some of the most dear friends I've ever met were people that I hiked with for 4 or 5 weeks, but nothing but respect for folks that hike together, either as a married couple or as boyfriend and girlfriend or best friends or whatever the relationship be, parents and their children, whatever.
Yeah.
But everybody has stories of hearing about cherished relationships that dissolve on trail because they just can't handle that pressure.
I can certainly think of more couples that broke up than I can of couples that made it together. And there were definitely a few couples that were formed on the trail.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And or groups. I mean, it wasn't always, it didn't necessarily have to be a,
They weren't
one of these
romantic.
boyfriend girlfriend.
That was a good hand motion. I like that. For those of you,
It's good for radio.
In a circle, sorry.
that was the international symbol for doing it.
Doing it.
Yeah.
Oh,
And, speaking of doing it, people always asked us because,
Nice segue.
you know what?
Thank you.
But
Make it
we
easy.
really didn't do it that much in the tent because you were
You're
generally
tired.
so tired.
You're tired and,
And
you're
you're
dirty.
cold or you're hot and you're dirty and I just want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
No, it was always, let's get to town, get a shower, have a good meal, have a good night's sleep, wake up. Then it's like, hey.
Right.
That's what you exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was one of the few people I knew that started with a friend, and by that I mean the trail.
Yeah.
But started hiking with a friend and ended with a friend, and we did the same thing where never shared. I think we figured out on this show one time that the only thing we ever shared was the bear bag rope.
Was the what, bear bag
Like
rope?
bear bag rope, yeah. Finally, like it was like, I guess this I think we could probably share.
Of course, food is the thing you're always going to argue about. 'Cause that's the most precious thing out there.
Well, we were talking about earlier today at lunch about that point in time when your body just goes boom, and it's like you can't stop. You were explaining why you can't stop eating at a certain point. And I remember that you had asked me. I kind of got out of answering it because I figured I'd answer it tonight on the show. That for me, that was Vermont.
Yeah.
It was almost like the second day in Vermont, and I had 9 days worth of food in my pack. I think it was, and I ate it in 3 days.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just like, whoa, like we were just lucky we passed. There's a spot up there where there was just a little outfitter off the side of the road, and they had food. But yeah, there was just that point where you're like, and I couldn't imagine like being hiking with someone, and they're like, wait, 9 days worth of food in 3 days? Like, yeah, it just happened. Like, and I'm hungry now.
What have I done?
Yeah, would have eaten 12 and 2.
There was another Snickers bar, and you ate it.
And I'd do it again if I had the chance.
Yeah, we didn't share food.
All
We didn't
spare
even
and
share
loving
stoves.
food.
She had her own stove because that's all going to lead to
The
fighting.
the only thing we shared was a tent.
That's it.
That's really cool. I've always
Yeah,
thought
I
like
didn't know that, actually.
I've always
I don't
thought
think.
that like if you hiked with a loved one, you know, there's a level of like, okay, what is shared gear and what is not. And I
Yeah.
always figured like it must be so much easier because there's a fair and of course there are couples out there that do split everything
Yeah.
like down the middle and right down to coupling their sleeping bags every night and
Right.
but that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's one of the it's probably why you guys did so darn well on the trail.
I'm convinced. I mean, because I saw when I did my first true hike, I saw so many couples split up,
Yeah.
and I was just like, we're not going to do that, and here's how. And again, it wasn't always, you know, it wasn't. It could have been two brothers or something
Sure.
that split up just over
Yeah.
you know, over food or who's carrying this. There's a lot of things about the weight too. It's like one person would carry the food and the other one would carry the tent. And so the person with the food would be bitching the first few days because
Yeah.
he's got an extra 5 pounds.
Yeah.
And then the last day or two, he's extra light.
Yeah.
And so then they would try to want to shift gear around, you know, and compensate for that.
Man, that makes so much
Yeah,
sense.
it was just like, you know what, we're not going to
Yeah.
share anything, honey. I love you, but we're not going to
Well,
share.
we didn't even necessarily want the same food. I wouldn't want to be
It's-
cooking
yeah.
in the same, but like, I don't
Well, yeah,
want
then you
that.
both have to have the same palate too, and this way we could get to the, because we did not do the, we did the buy the food as you go thing,
Right.
Not the you know prepare
No
it
mail drop.
6 months and then mail drop it. So we were that way. We just hit a store and I'd get what I wanted, she got what she wanted, and now that's not to say there wasn't some envy.
Sure.
You know, 2 days out, I was like, "Ooh, you got cookies."
That looks great.
It's like, yeah, sucks to be you. You should have
Yeah.
got
Should have got cookies. You're going to get cookies next time, motherfucker.
Yeah, exactly.
You know
Get
that.
your own damn
So we had
cookies.
some, you know, but there was a little bit of bartering, just like anybody else. So
Absolutely.
it's all worked out. That was a key thing, not to share.
Yeah.
You know?
Brilliant.
Not to share.
Yeah.
Go against everything your mother
To go
taught
out
you.
there,
Don't
Even our
yeah.
tent broke into, you know, she had the fly and I had the body, and you know, pegs and poles. It worked out, and that way I never had to feel like, you know, I'm carrying my wife.
Right.
You know, oh God, I got to do it all. You know, she carried. You know, we both carried about 2 pound of tent each, and that was it.
I remember a guy that I hiked with for a while. He had a gigantic red pack, huge, and I mean it weighed 55 pounds, and I had a little itty bitty like 50-liter pack that, you know, usually topped out at 25 pounds when I was leaving town. And it wasn't until like we had been hiking side by side for 4 weeks that I put it together. That people thought that he was carrying half of my stuff.
Oh no.
And it wasn't until I like realized that I got and it really like pissed me off. I was like, I am carrying every single piece of gear, and I worked really hard to get my gear exactly how I like it, and he just likes to carry absolutely everything. So he's not carrying my stuff, but it really made me mad. And then I got so defensive about it. Like anytime anybody would be like, wow, he sure does have a lot. And I'm like, yeah, it's all his. It is all, I was super defensive about it, but like I could totally see how, man, we weren't even like, we were just buddies hiking on the trail. And I just always was like, I've got my own stuff. I don't make anybody else carry my stuff.
Oh my God.
You're looking very dapper today, Pox, by the way.
Thank you. I've been wearing this shirt for 4 out of the last 5 days.
That's what the holidays are all about. Mm-hmm. Ooh, I have it.
Okay.
You should. Greetings, yellow blazers, blue blazers, those who believe in Santa Claus, the Krampus, Belschnickel, all of the different
don't think I know
The
Belschnickel.
You don't know what the Belschnickel is?
Popo Gijo.
No,
He
I
climbs
don't
up on the roof with the cows.
Belschnickel.
I don't think
And he
I
whips
know.
you if you've been bad.
I thought that was the Krampus.
No, the Krampus collects all the naughty children and burns them alive.
Nice.
Turns them into coal.
Is that who goes with the Krampus? Because doesn't
No,
the Krampus
the
have like a little black assistant?
Santa. No.
There's one out there where like there's like a it's worse. It's 6 big black men come and get you in the middle of the night. Like
Really-
it's like a Swiss,
really
Swiss
quick.
thing.
I'm going to tell you all the story of the Krampus, which I don't know if you know it or not, but I'll share it through the eyes of an ignorant co-ed. So I did a study abroad in like extreme northern Italy, so in the Italian Alps, and it's like basically everybody around was all German tradition, German speaking, pretty secluded, pretty like all sort of like boxed into this little area. And I get there. I was there for a fall semester, but stayed through the end of December. And everybody's getting ready for the holiday season. And I think the first time I ever saw the Krampus was at a grocery store, and like there, it's like good angel, bad angel. Like there's Santa and there's the Krampus. Like you get one and you have the other. Which I don't think it's like that everywhere, but I was in a grocery store and there were these cookies. They were these like long oval cookies that were white and they had Santa on them. But on the shelf right next to them were the exact same shaped cookie that were black with a straight up devil on them. And I was like, why are there devil cookies in the grocery store? I'm really concerned. And I bought a bunch of devil cookies just because I thought they were crazy looking. But it was like this very traditional, like, red devil with a trident, like, horns, fork tail, the whole. And so I, like, buy these devil cookies. I take them back to where I was living. And the lady that made all of our food for us, like, cooked all of our meals for us. I'm like, what is this? And she's like, oh, it's the Krampus. And I'm like, what's the Krampus? And she just looked at me like, well, he's the one that if you're bad, he collects all the bad children, puts them in a basket, and burns them alive. What? Like,
like you're the crazy one.
right? Like what do you mean? Who's the Krampus? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And the way she explained it was
Germans are stark.
the way she explained it was just so crude and cruel that I'm like walking away going like, holy shit! Like, I mean, I knew that Germans were tough, but
Yeah.
like, dang. So then, like, my professor that I was there with had a 5-year-old that was enrolled in kindergarten there, and she comes home and starts telling us stories about the Krampus. And I'm like, why are they telling you this? Like, they shouldn't be telling you this. And slowly I realized that this is just like what everybody knows and believes. And there was a whole festival where they had this gigantic, like the biggest bonfire I've ever been to. It was like the entire town was there, and it was like this symbolic bonfire, like as a warning to all the children that like this is what happens if you're bad. And it literally was like if you're good, Santa comes and brings you presents. If you're bad, the Krampus comes,
Burns you alive.
puts you in a basket and burns you alive. And so, like, but the Krampus, like, kind of like, there's a very stereotypical image of what Santa looks like, but then there's also like more traditional or more like rural like depictions of Santa.
Right.
But you see one picture and you know what it is. And the Krampus is the same way. Like, sometimes it's just a straight up like stereotypical devil. And sometimes it's this like crazy troll looking thing, but it always has this big basket. Sometimes, most of the time, with a lid that like locks and has like prison bars on it.
Oh, God.
And there's usually children like holding onto the
Right.
bars. And there's like a lock on the basket, and
Made
the
it through the
Krampus
basket
is just
part.
like burning, like he's throwing it into a fire. And it just blew my mind. I was like, why is everybody okay with this? This
You
is
gotta love the
insane.
Germans. They're so efficient. It's like, you know what? Let's just get rid of the bad kids right away.
Yeah, but so
Burn them alive. We get coal out of the
That's-
deal.
Now, Prof and Peacepipe were at a place where I had one of my most memorable moments. I guess that's what a memorable moment is. Where I had something happen where it sticks out in my mind, and it was the day that I broke up with my girlfriend. or the day that my girlfriend broke up with me on the trail. Now, I wasn't hiking with my girlfriend. She was just back home and came to visit about 3 times on the trail. And one of those times was Naked Hiking Day, in which she saved a lot of people from going to jail by picking everybody up and putting them into the back of her car while they were walking around naked in downtown Harpers Ferry.
That's bold.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's another time, I can't recall, somewhere else in Virginia. And then, but then in Williamston, New York, we were talking about this last night.
Right.
It's just a little town, nothing but like a bar that had like a hostel-ish kind of thing.
Well, I
connected
think
to
we
it.
were attracted to that bar because the book said it had a hostel.
Yeah.
And then when we saw the hostel, it was like a big closet with a couple of bunks in it. And I was like, that doesn't,
And I think I remember there were like 1 or 2 guys in there that were definitely not Thru-Hikers.
Yeah.
Like I think it's where they put people that were too drunk to
drunk.
go home.
Right.
And called it a hostel. But so we also started looking into, and we were doing a lot of slack packing at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody had a car that lived up around Connecticut. And I just remember that I was all stoked to see my girlfriend and all that stuff. She was coming up. She was bringing Barf's girlfriend with her. And she gets out of the car, and the first thing she does is just look down at the ground. And things have been kind of rocky. And I just remember I was like, you motherfucker.
God,
Do you remember this now?
I remember this now. Oh my God.
I was just beat down, and then we all had a couple of drinks. I was like, you've got to be shitting
We
me.
all stayed at that hotel.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, you drove all the way up here, and you're going to break up with me.
That's a long way
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
break up with somebody.
And she's just like, can we just talk about this later? And everybody else had it in their mind. They're like, we're just going to go get a hotel room. She's going to drive. She's got a car. She's going to take
Yeah.
us. And she did. But I just remember you guys were in the back seat and all of our...
I just wanted to get to the hotel. I mean, I felt sorry for you, but at the same time, I was like, look, just get me to the hotel first and then have your bit of drama.
And it was just...
I want to get
I was
warm
sitting there
and
going,
cleaned up.
motherfucker. And I was like, God damn it. She's like, just stop it. Just stop it. And I would stop. And then it would come like, motherfucker. Like, it just kept happening over and over and over again. And I felt bad, but it was just like, God damn it, you've got to be kidding me. Just split up right there. But that's life.
Yeah.
I remember that bar now, and there was that little general store.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I remember all of this now. Okay. Oh my Lord, it just washed over me.
Yeah.
Big old opened up a little memory gate there.
It was that point in time when you're in New Jersey, and then you're in New York for like 6 miles or
Right.
something like that, really
Right.
small. And I just remember that just being like, oh my God. But one other random thing about that bar. So if you once you continue on up, you go through like some neighborhoods there, and then a bunch of like really grassy hills. I just remember like not too far after you cross over a road, and not having much to say the night at the hotel, and getting up the next day, we kind of got back on the road early. I remember, and she drove us back up there. And so it was like, I think we actually went to the bar and then hiked until like 3 or something like that. And we're like, I'm just going to set up tent here. I don't really feel, much like going anywhere. And I remember there were some peacocks down the valley. And if nobody had ever heard a peacock before, or when it does that thing where it sounds like it's screaming rape. And it's like, rape,
Yes.
rape, rape, or help, help. Just that wailing that the peacocks do. So I'm sitting in my tent. Bar's sitting in his tent. We both have like some book we're reading at the time. I'm sitting there reading him. And he's like, you hear that? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, what the fuck do you mean what I want to do? He's like, well, somebody needs to go help that lady. and I was like, I knew I was like, what lady? He's like, that lady down there that's screaming help. I was like, Barf, that's a fucking peacock. He's like, what? And I'm like, he's like, no. And I hear zip, 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 zip. I hear him like getting out of his tent. And it's like 5 p.m. And I'm like, that's a peacock. And I could just tell he's getting out. And I'm sitting there like, no, I'm not going down to go help the peacock, dude. Help, Ray. Oh, God.
did you want to talk about the Pioneer Telephone Shelter?
Yeah, I'm down.
Were you getting there?
I'm down. Yeah, we've got all kinds of stuff over there. But what was Nuclear Lake? Like, it was the site of a spill.
I don't know, but I remember reading about it and there was something had happened there. But the thing that I remember was it was just the thickest mosquito hive I'd ever seen in my whole life. And I kept thinking they were radioactive mosquitoes.
Right.
That they had like Spider-Man superpowers.
Powers, yeah.
Because I slathered on the DEET, the Benz 100, and it did nothing for me. And I was planning on taking a break there, so I was kind of disappointed. I wanted to sit down, and
if you stopped,
that didn't happen.
Swarmed you and ate you alive. You had to keep moving, and it was like this black cloud just like billowing out behind you as they chased you down the trail.
It was the end of my day, so I didn't stop. I just remember being there and like having enough water and all that stuff, and knowing that it was one of those, like, in back then it was Wingfoot's book. You look through like, oh, what's this place going to be about? And I remember doing that where would read ahead. Like, what's going to be in the next state? And then you get there and you're like, oh, fuck this. Like, like that's the way I felt about Nuclear Lake. It was like, it's the end of my day. A few more miles to go till you get the old Telephone Pioneer Shelter.
But Wingfoot sometimes he'd be overly clever, and he'd give you half the story and then some riddle.
Yeah.
About what this was all about. And you're like, what the fuck?
And it was always the shittiest places, too.
Yeah.
Because he had nothing else to say.
Yeah. And so you're trying to figure out,
He had nothing else to say about it.
He didn't always give you the whole
I thought he was just
story.
trying not to give it away.
Yeah.
It was the experience.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, well.
Like he told you, Prof. He's like, don't ruin it for other people.
Yeah.
Don't tell them what's coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, so you met Wingfoot?
Yeah.
Did he hike in 95?
Both times. No, he'd hiked, he didn't look like he'd hiked in a good 5 or 7 years when I met him in 95. I think he hiked back in the 80s. And he did it like 7 times.
Yeah, and
He's one of those Baltimore Jackian type guys.
And he did the transfer of the letter between the governor of Georgia and the governor of Maine. Like, he hand delivered a letter from the governor of Georgia to the governor of Maine.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that was something that he did. Or maybe, was that Earl Schaefer? Maybe,
Earl Schaefer hiked the year we hiked,
he
right?
might have done it twice. Yeah. But I was thinking he might have done that on his second time.
Right.
Somebody took a letter.
All of this up.
Huh?
Is this George Washington? What are you talking about?
No, somebody really did take a letter, but I don't recall now.
Chopping down the cherry tree.
I cannot tell a lie.
The British are coming. The British are coming.
Happened. Somebody did it. When we take a break, somebody will Google that. But somebody delivered it. Well, what was Wingfoot like?
He was a nice guy. We got to his house, and because in the book it says like, come by and visit me. So we were in. It was in Hot Springs or Boiling Springs.
Hot Springs.
So so there was some little bar or restaurant in town there, and we all ate. We said, let's go buy Wingfoot's. Let's go. We're all going to go. So I was like, okay. So we went and knocked on his door, and it was it was just like a house, just like this in a little neighborhood. And he came out and invited us in, and he had like a library office, and his typewriter, and he was actually I probably was a computer. It was 95.
He had a computer.
Yeah. And he was, there probably like 10 or 12 people there, and
Typing by candlelight. No.
and
The big feathery pen.
and you know what I remember being interesting about Wingfoot, because he did tell me that he's like, don't ruin this for the other hikers. Don't be telling them what's going to happen in the next town. And I was like, okay. So we were in there, and he there's like 12 or 15 of us. Somebody went out on his porch to have a smoke, and then somebody else went. And finally, there was like 4 people out, and then Wingfoot came out and had a smoke. And we're all like, Wingfoot, you smoke? He's like, oh, yeah, because once you get strong, it doesn't matter. And you're like, oh, okay, then we'll smoke. So we were all go with it. And here's a funny thing with Wingfoot. There was like 8 or 10 of us, and people were like, I'm worried about this, I'm worried about that. Do you think I'm going to make it? And he's like, you're going to make it. It got to the point, I think we'd been drinking or something, but he goes around and he goes, you're going to make it, and you're going to make it, and you're going to make it. Talking about finishing the trail. He got to this one kid, I can't remember who it was, but he goes, you're not going to make it.
Poor kid.
And the kid's face fell, and he didn't make it.
Well,
He put the curse on him.
Yeah, he put the curse on him.
It's like Jesus telling you, like, you're gonna die.
Yeah. He goes, you're not going to make it.
you just roll over.
Just like a...
Yeah, who was that kid? I want to say his name was Turtle or something, but
Just a big white Krampus. coming to take you away.
It was so, well, I guess
Didn't
that was
work.
relatively early on.
Yeah.
That's so sad.
Yeah, it was kind of sad.
That's pretty awesome.
Am I 29 years old getting an ear infection?
Yeah, but there's the Wingfoot. I was just recently shopping. You know, I'm getting ready for this next trip, and of course, I'm in a lot of ways I'm real fucking cocky because I've done this twice. You know, like, nobody else can tell me how to do this hike. But at the same time, it's like, you know, some stuff's changed. So
Yeah.
I've been shopping. You know, got online and, you know, been looking at the maps and the books. And there's no Wingfoot book, but there's two different books and 3 different sets of mats, and
I think it was sold. I think he sold it.
sold the rights.
I know the Trail Place, you know, is continued.
Right.
And I think it was sold to somebody, and somebody said it was the same guy that did the PCT Yogi. I don't know that that's true. I don't know.
Yeah, they have the first few pages of it, you know, in one of those e-formats. You can look at it. It's much more technical and matter of fact, and doesn't have Wingfoot's Holmesy, you know, fun writing to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And doesn't it also have mileage in it now?
Yeah, it's got like a profile map and a mileage chart, and it's kind of like the combination of there was a data book back when we hiked.
Right.
Which I didn't carry that. I carried Wingfoot's book and the maps. I love the maps because I was always looking for the Blue Blaze.
Right.
You know, or where's that little town I can hop out to? Or, oh, look, there's a Yogi Bear campground.
Yeah.
You know? So I was always looking for that stuff. I really like the map.
Did you stay at the Yogi Bear campground?
Oh, yeah.
There was that one that was like right off the trail.
I don't know that we stayed there.
Oh, no, we didn't stay there. You're right. But we stayed an extra day at that shelter.
Was it in Virginia?
Yeah. It was just past, it was on the Blue Ridge, just past, as you're approaching Waynesboro.
Mm-hmm.
Was that when we stayed?
No, I know it was near, now I don't know. That big mountain. We hitchhiked, and then the park ranger changed us off the road twice. Remember that?
This is the game we play. Like, do you remember when we were here? Yeah. And it takes us about 5 minutes to like backtrack and find. Yes, that's where it was.
It's funny.
Anyway,
Barf doesn't remember a fucking thing from the trail.
Really?
He doesn't, and I'll say, "Man, do you remember that time?" And this happened. He's like, "No." And like it got to the point where like I'd sent him several emails, and it was like, "No, seriously, I don't remember." Like
Peaks of Otter.
Doesn't remember much of anything.
Oh,
Peaks of Otter, because we hitchhiked out to go to Peaks of Otter.
Oh, that's right. That ranger was like, "You can't hitchhike here."
And we go there. It's like this big buffet. We come back. We're hitchhiking back. It was like 10 miles to get back. And we get there, and she goes, "You can't hitchhike here." And we're like, "What do you mean? We've been hitchhiking in the last 3 months." It's like, well, Thru-Hikers, we hitchhike. She goes, "It's not safe for you, and it's not safe for the driver."
Oh, that's right.
And so we walked off like 50 feet, and she's like, "No, you can't hitchhike there," because we were right by the entrance exit to Peaks of Otter. And we're like, "Really?" I was like, "It's 10 miles," and she's just like, "You can't hitchhike." So we're like, "Fuck you." So we just start walking, you know. And as soon as we get over the crest, you know, we're out of sight. Boom, we got our thumbs back out again, and she comes over the hill.
Of course.
And I was just like, "You bitch." And I was like, "Where are you from?" And she'd come from like California.
She was from Florida.
From Florida, some state park in Florida.
You're just dead set on ruining this for us. Just give us a damn ride.
10 miles back.
So again, you're like, "Okay, I guess we're walking." And she drives off, and then like this pickup truck comes, and I'm like, "Dude, get me out of here!" And he picked us up.
We got in the back of the pickup truck with 2 coolers, and like 2 other people were in the back with us.
Yeah. But that was near the place where you're near the Yogi Bear campground, and that's a beautiful shelter. It's a big, giant, like 3-story shelter.
It was an amazing shelter. It was like architecturally designed.
Yeah. And the Yogi Bear campground's not even a half mile away, and they had beer, and they had wine, they had hamburgers, and they had candy
pizza.
bars.
Oh, I stayed there.
Yeah.
They had cabins.
We played,
and they had the giant Yogi out front.
Yep.
And we got in the basket and got a picture of us in the basket.
Yep.
And we played pool with landscape and sightseeing.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was very good.
It's all because it was like 2 miles from that awesome shelter.
Yeah.
And I got to that shelter and I was like, "This is the shit."
Mm-hmm.
And there was a beehive in it though.
Oh.
And so like people were being really careful about the bees, and like a lot of people weren't staying. I'm allergic to bees, and I was just like, I'm just gonna use my super bee karma to just find where they're gonna be happy that I'm here and it's gonna be okay. And everybody was like, "You need to get the hell out of here." I was like, "This is an awesome shelter. I'm not going to stay here
Right.
because
Right.
there's a
Yep.
bee." Like, but no, that was a sweet shelter.
Yeah.
It was really cool.
I'd actually remember, I think
It had windows in it.
95
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
to some of the trail
had, like,
maintainers,
a
and they were
little
talking
loft
about,
area.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
so and so was involved, and they airlifted in. You know, they got the local
Yeah.
military, the local.
That's right. Yeah.
There's a gigantic front porch, like a 2-level
Helicopter or
porch.
something.
Yeah.
National Guard,
That
whatever.
was really cool.
Yeah. I remember that.
Don't know the name of it, but
Yeah.
I cannot remember the name of the shelter, but it was fancy schmancy.
It was really cool.
There's
It
one.
had like long, narrow windows in it.
Oh yeah. There's one shelter I remember the name of. Telephone Pioneer Shelter.
Telephone
Oh, didn't we
Pioneer
talk about
Shelter, which is a shelter right after Nuclear Pond.
Which
if
is
I'm
right
not
after
mistaken.
nuclear. It all comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
but
was the end of the world.
yeah.
That was the end of the world night.
It was the end of the world. And I remember we got there, and there was a guy. I think we all arrived about the same time, the four of us. All arrived about the same time. And then I think there was already a guy there, or they came up.
I think they're
was
already
a
there.
I think they were already there. It was a couple. And the guy somehow knew Prof from something. Like you had met him, like he'd given you guys a ride and a
There was
hitch.
some connection.
It was
yeah.
like Georgia, North
He
Carolina.
wasn't a friend. He was an acquaintance.
Yeah, he was just like some guy you had seen.
Right.
And I feel like you guys knew the name of somebody in common. That was
Right.
about it. And he had this European, Swedish, Finnish, something kind of girlfriend, right?
Right,
She was
right.
some kind of European.
She couldn't speak English much.
No, couldn't, yeah.
Yeah, and she laughed a lot.
And she laughed a lot.
Didn't they have a drum too?
They
had a drum.
They had a drum, and I just remember we were sitting out, and out in front of Telephone Pioneers is pretty much just a hill.
Yeah.
You know, there's like about 8 feet out in front of it, and then a hill.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I remember we were just sitting there, and there was a nice view across the valley, and this guy was just like sitting out there playing his drum. And then I just remember at one point in time, it was kind of like you look back to look at the guy playing his drum, and his girlfriend is just sitting there with her skirt on, almost like she was playing a drum, but there was no drum there. And just sitting spread eagle, and you turn around like, is Helga? Yep, nope, Helga's not wearing any panties. And it was just like, all right. And this guy's just playing his drum. And I think he finally kind of dies off after a while. We're still sitting out there, and we just hear
Right.
just a boom off in the distance, a few more booms, and
And then a flash.
then a few flashes, and just boom. And it would rattle
And
up and
it
through
wasn't a
that.
boom boom. It was a rumble, low rumble. And then the lights that were flashing it wasn't like a flash bulb going off around the corner. It was like lightning,
Yeah.
but it wasn't lightning.
No.
And it was low on the horizon, but we had a mountain block in it. It wasn't up in the sky. It was low on the horizon. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of close because you could tell by the boom to flash
Yeah.
distance.
And this was something like July 20 something or
I think
yeah,
it was later
wasn't
than
July.
that.
It wasn't July 4th. That's for
No,
sure.
it wasn't
Yeah.
July 4th. We were in Pennsylvania for July 4th, so this was late July or August.
yeah. And I just remember we sat there and we were like, well, we've got all our gear. How much food do I have? Because it just felt like the
my
end of the
thought
world.
was this, because we were close to New York City.
Yes.
Yeah.
We were at that
yeah.
place on the trail where you can almost see New York City. And I think I might have the one that proselytized, if that's the right word, and said, you know what? I think New York City just got nuked.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because we were seeing these flashes and but we couldn't see it directly. It was indirect.
Yeah.
It was like around the side of this mountain, and we were just convinced that New York was being nuked. It was the end of the world.
Yeah.
And so then we all started taking stock of what we had. Well, we're ahead of the game. We're already in the mountains.
We're already out here.
We've got food and water. We're in shape. We know what we're doing. We got food and water for 3 days. We could, we'll survive because all the zombies are going to come up, out of the city.
We're going to eat this European chick.
Right. We'll eat the European chick. And,
We'll start there.
Nobody will miss her. She's
Yeah, no.
not in her homeland.
Right.
She'll spoil quickly.
Yeah. But it went on for a while. And we were actually we weren't stoned or anything. We were just kind of worried about life. And,
Yeah.
But we were being optimistic. And then one of us near there was a lookout point, like a half mile back of the trail.
And this was probably a good 15, 20 solid minutes of...
Yeah, and
Yes.
it wasn't quick.
It went
Yeah.
on for a while.
Yeah.
And so one of us, or a number of us, I don't remember exactly, but had walked out to that point, and realized it was fireworks.
Yeah.
It was fireworks way off in this valley.
Maybe it was like the town's,
Yeah.
bicentennial or something.
Somebody really rich just got married.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just
Some
it was
celebration.
But we thought it was the end of the
Huge. We
world.
definitely thought it was the end of the world. And I remember at one point in time there was a discussion of like joking about lightweight gear and saying that it'd be cool, if you lived in the nuclear state like that you would have a North Face full lead suit, and you'd be like, yeah, dude, it only weighs like 120. Like you're just like how proud you are of your lightweight 125 pound full lead bodysuit by the North Face. Oh God. Well, let's take a break and we'll be right back. Hey gang, just want to let you know about a contest we're running with Zach Davis, the author of the popular book Appalachian Trials. Here he is to tell you a little bit about it.
Hey guys, my name is Zach Davis. I am the author of a book called Appalachian Trials. It is a psychological and emotional guide to thru-hiking the Appalachian Trail. But I'm calling in to announce an amazing new contest on the Puss and Puss podcast. I love your guys' show, by the way. You do great work. But the contest is called Walkin' with Walkin'. What does that mean? All right, so give us your best Appalachian Trail story. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, here's the catch. You have to deliver this story using your best Christopher Walken impersonation. I was actually supposed to give this message using my Christopher Walken accent, but I didn't really realize how difficult that was until attempting it for the first time just a minute ago. So in other words, Godspeed to you. The winner of the contest will receive a signed copy of Appalachian Trials. I'm pretty sure people think the book is good, at least judging by the reviews on Amazon, unless I'm getting punked by Earth, which is still totally possible. But anyways, Walkin' with Walken. Good luck. Can't wait to hear your entries. Happy hiking.
Okay, so there you have it. Polish up those walking impressions and put it out there. Give us a call at 828-394-4526. Again, the number, go ahead and just put it in your phone in case something crazy happens to you while you're on the trail. The phone number again, 828-394-4526. The calls for the contest need to be in by midnight Eastern Time on Saturday the 19th of January, 2013. Puss and I will make our decision on Sunday the 20th, January 2013. And then the announcement will be made via podcast on Monday the 21st, January 2013. So again, that's your best Christopher Walken impersonation, and along with a really good trail story. Keep it to about 1.5 to 2 minutes tops. And we'll make the announcement, and you'll get that autographed copy of a really cool book, Appalachian. He made me say it. Appalachian Trials. Anybody need to pee?
When did you guys hike?
We hiked together in 98, and I hiked by myself in 95.
Did you hike with Timber and Tumbleweed at all?
Tumbleweed sounds familiar. Was that 95 or 98?
95?
Tumbleweed sounds...
No, they hiked in 2000 and...
No.
They hiked after me. Didn't they hike the same
2004. Hey, never mind.
year? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lie.
Same
That's
year
all a lie.
Same year Ice Cold did.
Have you guys been a part of any of the trail days pranks on Baltimore Jack?
No, but I think I saw a video of that because we were just talking about that. Did you see that movie Trail Angels?
Yes,
I wanted to, but I
Did you
didn't.
hear about it?
In that documentary, there was one of the...
They pranked him. They
pranked
dug the
him.
hole.
They dug
filled
the
it full
hole,
of
they
water,
dug the
put
grave?
tent on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they dug a grave and then put his tent on top of it. He did the same thing. He unzipped it and just sort of flipped himself into his tent and it fell through.
Right.
And
Oh my god.
Dang. The one we saw, they pranked him. They put stuff all over his tent, didn't he? And this is that documentary Trail Angels.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the one I saw, they just dug a pit. And then they moved his tent, dug a pit, and then set his tent
Yeah.
back up on top of it.
yeah.
Okay.
So that, and then when he crawled in, it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
it falls into the...
That's messed up.
Falls
That
into
is
the pit.
messed
Yeah.
That is ridiculous.
That's your safe haven. That should be the place where you can go and be okay.
Your tent should be left alone.
Well, yeah.
He would come busting through, like, the brambles and the briars. He'd burst out and, like, blood dripping down his leg and rags hanging off of him because he'd wrap something around because he had some cuts from the day before. And
I've got pictures of it.
Okay, but
he was hiking in 98. He was hiking.
He
the
hiked in
trail.
95.
yeah, I mean, and I remember.
We summited Katahdin with him in 98. We got pictures of him
Oh, my
on
God.
top
Yeah.
with blood running from from knee to foot because he would just plow through shit.
Yeah.
Just plow through it.
If there was a blowdown on the trail, he just... I don't even know that he thought about it. He just pushed through.
Right. I can't remember the first time I met Jack, but I'd met him in 95 and then we saw him a number of times in 98. We saw him back in Virginia a couple times and up in New England.
The first time I met him was the night that we were talking about earlier. I think yesterday, when it was it was in the Shenandoahs, and there was just that gaggle of people that we were all talking about yesterday.
This is the nonsense night.
Yes.
Okay.
And-
Well, here's my funny story for Jack.
Yeah.
At that particular, we were in the Shenandoahs. There was a pretty good group of us, about 6 of us. I think Roy and Shoulda might have been there. And you and
Roy and Shoulda weren't there.
They weren't there. You and Barf were there. I think
Yeah.
Woodpecker might have been there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the Shenandoahs, you have access to more stuff. In particular, you had access to beer and wine
Right.
at the camp stores.
Right.
Because, Virginia's a great state, and I'm from Virginia. And our park services sell beer, wine, and tobacco. It was great.
There you go.
And so we're all in the shelter, and we're all settling down, and we're kind of getting quiet. And Jack dozes off and starts snoring and wakes up.
Wakes himself up.
Wakes
snoring.
himself up and says,
Snoring.
"Who's snoring?" In that very indignant Jack voice. It's like an authority. We're like, "Jack, shut the fuck up. Go to sleep. You're snoring." He's like, "Nonsense." And so he does this 3 times, and each time is like, we're like, "Jack, you're snoring." And there's 5 of us telling this. He's like, "Nonsense." That was the line.
Nonsense.
And so Peacepipe
I got out my micro
had a
cassette
little
recorder.
micro cassette. This is back in the pre-MP3 digital cool shit day, where you took 2 AA batteries of the size of half a pack of cigarettes, and that was tinier, and it took a little micro cassette. And she recorded Jack's
snoring.
self-delusion, waking up and self-accusation of snoring. And finally, I think we proved it to him, and then he got up and
Oh, he was mad.
he grabbed his shit. Yeah, he got mad because we mocked him, of course.
I got the micro cassette recorder out, and he started snoring. And somebody tapped him on the shoulder. It's like, "Jack, you're snoring." And he goes, "Nonsense!" And you can hear on the cassette recording everybody laughing our asses off. And then we rewound it. We're like, wake up, listen to this. And I played it for him. And of course, when it got to the point where he says, "Nonsense," everybody in the shelter just hooted. And he got up and walked away all indignant.
Yeah. He dragged his sleeping bag out and slept elsewhere.
I didn't really have many interactions with
Jack
him.
was
Just a few.
Jack was a great guy. He was fun to talk to. He could sit down and talk about anything with you.
Yeah.
Well, and he liked to tell stories.
Like, tell stories. I mean, they were good stories from my perspective.
Jack was very enjoyable. Well, remember the KOA campground?
The KOA camp. So we're at the KOA campground there in Harper's Ferry. So there we are.
Let me do this story because I
You
have
do
got
this
to
story.
tell what was going on with poor Prof that night. Somewhere along the way, you got some sort of pinched muscle or nerve in your shoulder. Do you remember
Right.
this?
Yeah.
It was so bad. He couldn't lay down. There was nothing he could do to make it comfortable.
I was laying on my side in a fetal position.
And at one point, he's on his hands and knees, rocking back and forth. And he goes, "Honey, I think you're going to have to take me to the hospital."
Yeah.
And I was like, "What? What's going on? Holy shit." And we were talking about getting a cab and getting him to the emergency room because he was in so much pain. He just had something locked up in his shoulder, right? It was your
yeah.
shoulder. And we're getting up and we're figuring out how to do this. And I see we had met Sensei's wife
Right.
at the time. I won't say her real name, but we had met Sensei's wife at the time and remembered that she was a massage therapist.
Oh, wow.
And I saw her walking by and I'm like, hey, you know, can you help us? And I told her what was going on. And she spent the next like 10 minutes taking her elbow and digging it into his back. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And releasing, and he's like, ah, yelling out, and she's like, oh, am I hurting you? He's like, no, it's good. And she actually released.
She healed me.
She laid hands on him and healed him.
Yeah.
Okay, so I tell that because he's exhausted, right? I mean, he's just like, we've been up hanging out and partying, and we finally get into the tent, and he's like, oh, I'm passing out. I'm done.
Right.
Okay. So, story number 1.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Is Baltimore Jack and this gal.
She was
It was her
smoking hot.
birthday. It was her
Hey, I remember
birthday.
that.
She was smoking hot.
Okay. So
Oh, yeah.
Good enough.
Well, that aside, she was smoking
Hold
hot.
up your license. Yeah.
yes, okay. Or she turned 21 or something like that. But at any rate, it was her
18's good.
birthday.
18 sounded better. Go
But-
ahead.
It's West Virginia.
But so there we are in the tent. I'm kind of like half dozing off. And I hear Jack. And he's talking to Belly button. And she's slurring her words or whatever. And I hear that telltale swish, swish of a bottle, you know, glass bottle, liquid moving around. And so I poke my head around to see what's going on. And he and Belly button are sitting there leaning against a tree. Passing this bottle back and forth. I don't even know what it was.
Yeah.
Taking swigs out of the bottle. And passed out.
Yeah. She drank him under the table.
She drank him under the table. And I watched it all. I was like, no shit. Okay, so
So part 3.
so part 3, this is the last part. So later on, I must have dozed off and I woke up and we hear this.
Now, bear in mind, there must have been 20 tents.
Yes,
that was a
there's-
very busy night.
It was a very busy night. Well, that had been naked hiking day.
And it was in
And it was just packed
the
with
one
Thru-Hikers.
camping spot in KOA they couldn't rent because it was this bowl.
So
It was
they
a
would-
big ditch hole in the ground
Yep.
that would hold 20 tents.
And as I remember that night, there was
was a
someone
lot going on.
who was just driving around that little center island. There was just some guy like from Harper's Ferry probably just driving around, and he had like wasn't even like bass booming music in his system. It was just something, and the dude just like drove around for like a long time.
There was a lot of partying going on
Yeah,
that night. There
yeah.
was just I think people stayed there for an extra
Yeah.
day. I think we were
Yeah.
all just
And,
hanging out.
and this was after my girlfriend that I talked about earlier had just dropped off
right.
in a Jeep Cherokee. She had just dropped off like 9 people.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and that's when
There were,
one
there
guy
were
got out just buck naked out of the back of her car, and it was like
That's right. Wasn't that?
Got naked hiking.
about half hard too. It was like, dude, and he'd been in.
I remember him piling out of the truck that the Jeep. It was a Grand Cherokee, right? I was
yeah.
like, ah,
And I remember that dude, she friend.
Yeah.
yes.
So he's sitting there, and he's like, he basically flagged my girlfriend down, and I was like, pull over, I know those people, you know, and he was sitting in the middle back seat, and he's just like, thank you so much, and he's like between she and I, like lean forward in the middle, like, hey, it's up here. It's like, yeah, it's the KOA, man. We know where it is. We know where it is. And he's like, go up here. He's just drunk, slurring, just kind of pointing off. We're like, yeah, we're getting you there. We're getting you there. And he gets out, and after we get everybody out, and I had to open the back up. And when I opened the back up, some girl was upside down, like with her feet against the ceiling. And I undo the back of the thing, and whoever she was, she comes somersaulting out. And then, yeah, there's naked and another person, like, on the way. On the way to being naked. And everybody was just barely wearing any clothes at all when we first picked them up. And they had been doing a lot of streaking in town. But, yeah, and I just remember that he gets out and comes over to the driver's side window to my girlfriend and is like, thank you very much. She hasn't seen him yet because he's like, comes right up on her side, like, thank you very much for the ride. And she's like, okay. And then he walks around in front of the car in the headlights. And Frenchie is like leaned in on my side, like, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And he's like, Jesus, the big fucking dick. And there it is. It's just like, and so part 3, I'm sorry.
So we're in the tent. We're getting settled back down and all, because I had to wake you up to share that story.
I was aware of that.
Yeah, we watched it all go down together. That was great. So he's falling back asleep, and things are kind of quieting down, and all of a sudden you start to hear these telltale shrieks of somebody getting it on in a tent over that way. And I was like, oh man, I roll over and it's like, whatever, KO. And I figured out who it was. And her boyfriend. Right. And all of a sudden Prof goes, wake up! Wake up! I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you're having a nightmare. Wake up! Wake up! I'm like, dude, they're having sex. He's like, oh. He goes back to sleep.
Impossible.
But he was like half asleep himself, slurring his words. It was hysterical. I was laughing.
Well, I've heard squeals of delight, and hers were a little different from your typical squeals of delight.
He's right.
18-year-old squeals of delight.
Yeah,
it wasn't
drunken
like,
18-year-old squeals of delight.
It wasn't
just
like, ooh baby, ooh baby. There was some screaming.
Yeah, there was kind of like wild monkey with tail on fire type screaming.
Well, she did just at the age of 18 be ball in a drinking contest.
Yeah, true. We're not talking about your average 18-year-old, I don't think.
Right. So I thought she was having a nightmare.
It must not have been her first rodeo.
Son of a bitch.
Did either of you or anybody ever hear of a guy named Bjorn?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I was going to, because you hiked with him in 95.
Bjorn hiked in 95, and he was kind of the Baltimore Jack of,
yeah.
I mean, he was
I'm
the
down
legend of Bjorn.
You and Snore talked about it.
Oh, my stars. And Bjorn was, I'm a tall man, I'm 6'4", and Bjorn was about 6'6".
Yeah, he's 6'6".
And Bjorn weighed maybe 350 pounds.
Yeah.
It's a big dude.
What's his quote at the big, because you were part of the first AT like coffee table book, weren't you?
Yeah, the first coffee.
The one that came out in 95.
In 95, there was like
it came out in 98.
4 newspapers put out teams.
Right.
And so there were like 4 major newspapers, like the big newspaper right here from around here.
Yeah, it was News Observer from Raleigh. Yeah.
And then up the coast, the big one in Boston, and the New York paper, they all put out 4 teams of report. They each put out team reporters. One was the writer and one was the photographer, and they'd section hike the trail and ingrain themselves. What's the word with embedded? Right, like they were embedded with the troops. They were embedded with the Thru-Hikers.
Yeah,
but we all knew they were the reporters. It was kind of like, oh, the reporters are up here. I want to talk to them. I want to be in the book. But in the newspaper, because what happened was we didn't know there was going to be a book. They were doing these newspaper articles.
Right.
And I actually did get in one of the newspaper articles. And every week...
It was like a co-opted thing.
Yeah.
And each paper would get each story.
All the papers, right. But then when it was all said and done, there was a coffee table book.
Yeah.
And that actually, we all got that book and took it to Trail Days in 96. And it was kind of like our year, like you have your high school yearbook.
Yeah.
It was like it had pictures and stuff in it, And
yeah. Now I remember at that time... you guys were smoking cigarettes.
Right.
And there was the one photographer.
Right.
Who didn't like that. Because, like, you guys always had a cigarette in your hand whenever he came around to take a picture.
Right.
And he got really... Was that where the lungs adapt came from?
Yeah. We were in the Whites, and we were going from Lake of the Clouds up to...
Washington.
Mount Washington. And so we're going up, and we take off. And actually, they took off, and we took off, and we passed them. Just as the reporters, we passed them going up there. And we got about 3/4 of the way up, and me and Grant or somebody had smoked out and sat down and had a Camel. And watched him come up, and he was just huffing and puffing and cussing. And he goes like, how could you do this? How could you, hike like that and then have a cigarette? And we were just like, dude, the lungs adapt. We got up and hiked on.
You're in that book. I wish I had it here to look up the page number, but you're in that book about the size of a pinhead, right?
They're taking pictures of 3 hikers who are like silhouettes up on this this rock, skies in the background.
Yeah, you're like, I'm one of those guys.
Something very poetic got said, and
I think actually one time you pointed out because you had the external frame pack, we were able to figure out who you were on the picture.
there you go.
Oh man! So how did it come about that you guys did the hike? Like, was it because I think I recall you saying something like you got tired of just hearing his stories?
Well, what happened was I met him, 3 months after you finished hiking? Because you finished the end of September.
We met in December.
Yeah, we met in December. The end of December, between Christmas and New Year's, we met. And he, talked a lot about the trail and what he had done. And then that next spring, May of 1996. God, I feel old saying that. Jeez Louise.
I took her to trail days.
Yeah.
So we went to trail
spring,
days, and I met all these people, and of course it was the year after he hiked, so there was a bunch of buddies, and honestly, I swear that's where I met Baltimore Jack for the first time.
Yeah.
Was at trail days,
You can see it.
and I just like this, sitting around, they're telling their trail stories. It was just amazing to me, and to have the people who were currently hiking coming in and looking like Thru-Hikers and smelling like Thru-Hikers.
And wasn't my buddy Snoop hiking in 96?
Yes.
Yeah, so I had a friend that hiked the year after I did, and we met him.
Mm-hmm. And we were, at that point, sometime in not at that point, it was later on, but sometime in 1996, you and I moved to Pennsylvania together, and we ended up picking Snore up from the trail.
Not Snore, but
Snoop.
Snoop.
Sorry. I get the two trail names screwed up.
It's close.
But all of that put together, the fact that his buddy Snoop was hiking that year and just listening to all the tales, and I was like, you know what? I can't be with you if I'm not a Thru-Hiker.
Right.
I just can't. I got to do this. And he was like, okay. And then somehow along the way, he's decided we had to get married first. And
Right.
But it was.
So, yeah.
This seeing, how it is when you meet somebody. You may not have hiked with them that year, but you meet somebody, but you can sit down and start talking about King Cora, and you can talk about,
As we're doing with Puss right now.
exactly,
Right.
and it's automatic. It's just like, you're a Thru-Hiker, I'm a Thru-Hiker, we have a bond. It doesn't matter,
I definitely see that.
because I couldn't have him lording it over me.
No, especially not twice
No.
or third time.
So we did it again. Or so I did it again.
Well,
and
you
we
did
did
it again.
Yeah.
The funniest thing about us hiking as a couple, is he had to get over. You would be hiking on ahead of me. Cause
Right.
he's
Well, see,
long
we
legs.
didn't, we had hiked together, but we didn't hike together.
No.
We'd get up in
you
the morning
ended
and
up
I'd
at
say,
the same place.
I'm going to meet you at lunch at McAfee's Knob.
Right.
And then we'll get to the shelter for dinner. And there were other people hiking with us, and
Right.
off you go, making your best time. So we didn't hike. We weren't lockstep hikers.
And he
No.
would be ahead of me, and he would get to
And I'd
some
worry, yeah, so
ridiculous
I'm-
thing. You come across going,
How do I get up here? And there was like, a hand spike there. And you're like, whoop, I'm going to fall there. And I was always worried. I was like, I can't just, I'm feeling like I can just barely make this.
How's my wife
And
going to do
how can I
this?
help my wife? A, how's she going to do this if I could just barely do it?
Right.
And B, even if I could help her, I really can't help her because
Right.
I'm just barely making this myself. I'm hanging on by my claws, my fingernails to do this
Right.
every day.
Yeah.
I can't be helping my wife, and I'd worry. I feel like a bad husband.
Well, and then from my perspective, it was like, stop trying to drag me up the goddamn trail. Let me do this.
Yeah.
Right.
I have to take these steps on my own.
Well, see, I'd see her, she'd come bounding in, big smile on her face, or she's
Or
all
going,
happy and
"God
loving
damn
life.
it."
I was like, oh, okay.
Depending on what the weather was.
Yeah.
But generally, you came into camp looking just
yeah.
like you were loving life, because you were.
You had to see I could do it.
But even after 100 times, I was still worried, honey,
I know.
because I love you.
I know. I love you too.
Aw.
No, I love you, sweetie.
Okay, yeah, we're going to take a break.
Yeah. Actually, I need to go pee.
That's cool.
That's a funny thing. being a couple in that way too, because I had days where I was just like, I feel like you are trying to drag me down this trail. Leave me alone.
Yeah. I remember some tense
But he was
times being
trying to
around you
help
guys at some
me.
tense times. Like in that.
You can't help it.
No, no.
Even, I mean, and obviously, if like you marry somebody that's your favorite person, and even your, you know, I mean, you couldn't eat your favorite food all day every day. So being around your favorite person all day every day would have to be, it'd be trying. And
Well, you know, hiking the trail is like anything else. It's like the clothes you wear, it's the food you eat, it's the way you live your life. And you have two people who dress differently and eat differently and are going to hike the trail differently and try to manage that. We had moments where we were pretty pissed off at each other.
Yeah. And you're having to do it with an audience.
yeah,
Well, yeah, and then we had an audience. It's
Yeah,
just
it's not like you can go into the other room or
No.
something.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you're there.
But you
Yeah.
kind of had to get okay with that too, and understand that. And maybe at the time I wasn't processing it this way. I was just motherfucker, and he was thinking the same thing. You bitch.
Yeah.
But what you had to get okay with is you're going to be pissed off, and there's going to be people witnessing it.
I got a question
Yes, you and the Black Jacket.
for Puss.
yeah.
In 909,
Yeah.
what was the deal at the Kennebec? Could you still ford it? Did they have the canoe guy?
No,
They
you
didn't
had,
allow it?
No, you had Kennebec Dave. Kennebec Dave.
You were
was-
not permitted to ford.
No, there's a white blaze painted on the bottom of the canoe.
See, now back in our day, Pox, did you ford?
No.
You rode the canoe?
Yeah. I didn't really know much about it. I didn't really
I
pay
didn't
much
ford.
attention.
I wasn't going to walk across in those greased
Well, we forded,
bowling
didn't we?
balls.
Didn't,
Yes,
didn't the boys ford?
You in Kodiak.
Because in 95, they didn't have the canoe guy.
Kennebec Dave is a full-time, like, that's his job. There's a white blaze painted on the floor of the canoe that and it's written in the guidebooks now, like, if you are actually wanting to be considered a thru-hiker, you better ride the canoe, because otherwise it's basically them trying to, like,
Calling you a pussy.
Right.
twisting your arm into, like, if you want to actually do this, this is what needs to happen.
Right.
Now, when I was in Maine, I flip-flopped. So I was in Maine in, like, mid-July, and it had been an incredibly wet summer. So, like, the Piscataqua was just below chest deep on me, and it was, like, running hard, running fast. And so, like, the Kennebec was
Right.
raging.
Right.
And like a lot of the river fords that were supposed to be not a big deal became a huge deal. So, you know, I don't know,
Right.
you know,
Well, northbound, I did ford it both times,
Right.
and I enjoyed it both times. And of course, in the back of your mind, you're knowing that there's always the chance that the dam upriver is going to be, it's a hydraulic, on-demand electric generator dam. Could release at any time,
Right. Yeah.
and you're going to, you need to be ready to. We all had our packs ready, to unhook so that we wouldn't do the turtle on the bottom drowned thing. And
I'm just wondering, like, was there a canoe option available
Yes,
for you?
Because I took it.
but not in '95. In
Okay.
'98 there was, and actually a lot of people some people say take my pack, and I'll just ford, because then
Sure.
basically I'm just going to swim,
Right.
if I have to,
Yeah.
and once it's short enough.
I remember standing on the side and trying to figure out what to do. Mm-hmm. And the dude was there, and he was just like, "Trust me, man." He's like, "Just put your pack in."
Yeah.
Like, you can help paddle. It's like, cool. So that's how we did it. Went across and kind of traded the paddle back and forth.
I had no desire whatsoever
Yeah.
to ford the Kennebec. It just wasn't on my list of things I had to do before I died.
Well,
Yeah.
for me, it was not a sense of honor because I was a blue blazer. I didn't care about that. I was out to have fun,
Right.
and I was just like, this is just a ballsy thing to do. I'm going to do it. What the fuck?
There's all kinds of warnings now,
Yeah.
and like a death tally, I think.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
how many people have died trying to do it, and this, that, and the other. And
How many people have died trying to ford
I don't
the
know.
Kennebec?
Well, I was talking about that turtle, and some woman had done the turtle backpack drowning
Really,
few
a
years.
Thru-Hiker?
Yeah.
She slipped and wound up on her back and couldn't find her
Yeah.
quick releases and
Yeah.
drowned.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
that's
sad.
rule number one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just a day or two after that you come to the Wire Bridge.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Wire Bridge?
Like
It's a cable, and they're about 4 feet apart, and it goes across about a 100-foot stretch of this canal.
Yeah.
And the idea was you walk on one and you hold on to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't
Yeah.
cross that. I did a photo shoot like I did.
Yeah.
I took my backpack off and hooked it and had the tether string and got out there like, yeah, I'm doing this. Take the picture, and then I went back.
I think we hopped some rocks.
Yeah, and then you go upstream, a quarter mile, and you go through some rocks.
Yeah.
On the other side.
It was a lot easier to see, I think, heading north than heading south, because then you're like, oh, I've already just came from there, because you don't see it on the other side.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like it's a little bit off trail.
Yeah.
So I did from the Kennebec northbound to Katahdin, and then drove back to Kennebec and went south from there.
Gotcha.
So I did all of that stuff the same way my northbound brethren did, but I was not a fan of river fording, and I don't know if it was just like I figured like I am small and like short and light and felt like it was just very unstable for me, and this was something I'd never done before. So but I learned very quickly that after river fords, and I don't know if it was nerves or you know how like if you put somebody who's sleeping, if you put their fingers in warm water, they will pee themselves. I don't know if it's just like when my feet get cold and wet, I have to poop. So every time I had a river ford, like every time there was a river ford, like as soon as I got to the other side, I was like, all right, don't come follow me. Like darting off into the woods to take a gigantic poop. Because that was it. I don't know. It honestly could have been either one, but and it also wasn't until the Piscataquis River Ford, which was the first one that was like over belly button height.
Right.
And I hiked in. I had a pair of like lycra shorts and a running skirt that I wore over that. And I took the running skirt off and like put it on top, so I was just wearing these like lycra shorts, and I had just worn out my first pair and I was on to my second pair, and the second pair was a little bit different than the first one, so they were okay. And I crossed the Piscataquis in front of the two guys that I had been hiking with for a good long while, and they took pictures of me going across, and they take pictures of me like scrambling up the side. There's like a bank you had to scramble up on the other side of the river. And it wasn't until like 3 days later, I'm clicking through somebody else's pictures, and I just stop and turn the camera around. I'm like, so when were you guys gonna tell me that these new shorts are completely see-through? And they were like, oh, we weren't.
Right.
We were just gonna let it go. But so all these pictures of me scrambling up this bank, like I might as well have just been wearing pantyhose.
Right.
Like it's just like butt crack. But yeah, I went back to the old pair that had worn out, that had holes in them, because those ones ironically weren't see-through.
Well, I got a question for you, Puss, since we were talking about bodily discharge functions. Did you ever learn to pee standing up as a woman?
The old spread and lift,
Well, I don't know how it's done,
presumably.
but I know my wife did get to that, and I was right proud of that fact that she could do the stand-up pee.
I found it always to be messy. Mm-hmm. So I didn't make a habit out of
Right,
it.
Peacepipe? How about, what was your thoughts?
I wasn't like able to like write my name in the snow or anything.
Right, I guess that's what I was getting to.
But yeah, I mean that wasn't like a common thing for me.
Right.
But I gave it a whirl a couple times.
Yeah.
It was something that had to be done with intention and force.
Well, the idea was you didn't want to have to stop and take your pack
I
off.
was getting sick and tired of him going, hold on a second. He'd step off the trail and turn around and have a conversation with me over his shoulder while he took a whiz with his backpack on. I was like, God damn it.
Yeah.
I
This pisses me off that I got to take my backpack off, squat in the wood, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So I learned how to do it standing up without taking my shorts down.
Wow.
So through the pant leg, just like the guys
Wow.
go.
Yeah.
That's talent.
Wow.
And that's why I said it took intention
Yeah.
and force.
No, is
Otherwise,
that
it
not
would
how
end
you
up
peed? Was
dripping
through one of the
down your
pant
leg.
legs? 'Cause
Intention and
Yeah.
force.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's well
So you
put.
really had to
Yeah, you
go.
don't even have to
Yeah.
unzip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just through the leg. 'cause
You had to see that one
you were
through,
like
too. That was
swimsuit.
not like a midpoint slow down.
You had to
Something
pay
like it.
attention.
Yeah.
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 I had a
Ex
swimsuit
officio,
with the
yeah.
swimsuit with the mesh liner, and that was just perfect. I could just go through one leg.
Yeah.
Is that what it sounds like?
Yeah. That's the sound of lifting the short.
Now you know what else in the pee envy department was I had the wee wee bottle.
Oh, good Lord, you still have the damn
I'd still have the wee wee bottle. yeah.
By the bedside?
Well, I don't use that often,
You,
but
oh, come, let's be honest.
it's like my blankie. It's like my blankie. I'm so
You're Teddy.
Getting to have a wee
The
wee
other
bottle.
morning, I hear the telltale sound of the lid
tinkle.
the lid being unscrewed from the plastic Gatorade bottle.
I was gonna say it's just gotta be a Gatorade bottle.
Yeah.
That's
And then the quiet,
because a mason jar is just bragging.
yeah.
Showing
And I'm
off.
thinking to myself, he better not fall asleep, doze off, and then spill that all over our bed
I only did that once on the trail.
on his own sleeping bag.
You spill the pee bottle one time. You never live it down.
This was in our house with a bathroom like
Five
five
steps away.
steps away.
So you'll hike the AT 3 times, but you won't walk 4 paces
Thank you.
to take a
Thank
wee.
you.
Let me say something.
That's a deal breaker, ladies.
Let me say something. And now we're getting way off. We're getting way off the trail. But you have this habit of leaving shit in the bathroom. There's a box here. Oh, there's a clown ball or yoga ball. Can be anywhere in the house at any time. And I don't move through my house without going in a slow shuffle when it's dark because between her toys and the kids' toys, it's a landmine. It's a.
You are so way off track.
Okay.
Back to the trail.
Back to the trail.
Oh, why? If you ever listened to this show, very, very loosely based around the Appalachian Trail.
I would when it was good and raining enough that I had a rain jacket on, I wouldn't take my pack off to pee. Now I don't think that I have the bladder strength or the fortitude to pee out the side of my shorts, but I would just like
Force.
the force. I could just I would just squat on trail with my pack
on.
with my pack still on and still done. It wasn't a big deal, but
Yeah.
Well,
I just thought that was just a good point to
it is
cover
a good
here.
point.
we've
You know,
covered
it is a good
poop
point.
and pee.
Do you guys not have the problem where like if you get number 1, sometimes you get number 2 too, or is that just?
Well, yeah. I mean, but a number 2 from a number 1. And it's if you got a number 2, then it's
saying.
then it's all bets are off. But
I'm
there's
just
plenty
saying, every now and then.
yeah, but there's plenty of.
But I think that's because, and I've had this discussion before.
Okay.
It's my theory that you're thinking, well, I'm already sitting down.
Okay,
I think
well, maybe
that's
that's the
coming from,
difference.
Things let go. Things
Yeah,
let
like
go.
that's why we
Gravity's
don't.
working.
Yeah, I'm sure if we sat down to pee, we'd be like, well, I'm down here.
Yeah, exactly.
Like no point in sitting down twice.
Right. Right.
Sorry, I was a little too quick with that answer.
It's all good.
He's
Yeah.
thought about it. He's
yeah.
talked about it before.
Yeah, it's.
What
been
I would
brought
say
up.
for the guys, that's definitely the signs of a pro is a wee wee bottle.
Yeah,
Once you've been doing this for a month or so, if you don't have a wee wee bottle, you aren't thinking.
Well,
you get your head in the game, kid.
and in
Think
true-
smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
true Thru-Hiker fashion, you also had a collapsible wee wee bottle.
Well,
on the trail.
well,
It wasn't just
that
a
was
Gatorade.
that was just a gear thing. That was a gear head.
Did you have like a?
Fancy pee bottle.
Do they make
Oh,
a?
yeah.
It like collapsed down into this little disc type
Oh
thing.
yeah, I remember.
It had the same fat round lid, just big enough.
Perfect lid.
And it would like, you could blow all the air out. It was like like one of those collapsing cups almost.
Yeah.
It was like, this is nice. This is small.
So it tucked in nice and neat, and
Yeah.
it wasn't a waste of space.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And some winter camping, you can always just leave it right there. A little bit of body heat right there.
Oh.
Yeah, there was that too.
Yeah. I actually had a retired yellow Nalgene, like one of those first, like Lexan clear, but it was like a yellow, and I had it for a while, and it was just like I know what you're going to be.
Yeah.
You're going to be my winter camping pee bottle.
I just bought some Nalgene bottles. I was at the Outfitters and just starting to get some gear together. And I noticed they had the HPAV or whatever, that plastic.
BPA.
BPA. They had an Nalgene bottle for $6.95.
Yeah.
But then they had the BPA-free Nalgene bottle for $19.95.
Oh, is that one with the fancy lid?
It's got the special green type on it that says it's BPA free.
$20?
For an Nalgene?
Yeah.
Where was
Not just like a regular.
That was down at the place down in Seaville.
Okay.
So I bought the $6.95.
Meanwhile,
Plastic bags.
your wife's trying to figure out how long the fart smell will stay in the inside of a Nalgene bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. She
No
would,
big deal.
Yeah, she would do that. You'd be amazed, people, the first thing they do when they get an Nalgene bottle, they open it up and they stick their nose in it. I mean, sold enough of them in my life.
Right. So
And you've seen it.
Fart in them.
Yeah. Not every one of them, but they all get
That's the magic of it.
They
is
all
it's
get
not
the one.
everyone.
they all
The
get
special
sold.
one.
Yep. It's just throw it in the pile there. You never know.
Oh, you guys.
Oh.
I've never farted in a Nalgene bottle. Thank you very much.
I never have either.
But you
I am a
learn-
lady, obviously.
Yeah, obviously from every show you haven't
There's-
missed telling a poop story yet.
Never.
I commend you for that.
Thank you.
I was wondering how you're going to work one into this week.
Never worry about how I'm going to work one into this week.
There were lots of bad poop stories, but I think I'm done with the poop stories.
Never.
Oh yeah.
No?
Never done with poop stories.
Well, actually, I have a good. Here's
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
story.
about.
This is a good hiker tip story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did everybody here get into baby wipes?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did. That's all I carried.
No?
You know what else I did?
What?
This is my favorite. Baby wipes, and I had a little tiny bottle of rubbing alcohol.
Uh-huh.
That was the extra clean. That
Right.
was like
Well,
the-
baby wipes, after 4 days without a shower, sometimes the sphincter.
Oh yeah. The sphincter.
The sphincter issues.
Your sphincter issue.
The red eye. And that's how
The red eye.
That's how you would prevent that was baby wipes.
Yeah.
And so anybody who spends much time living out of doors learns to get those little, it holds like 10 of them. It's made for you to buy for your baby when you're out, when you forgot to bring the big container, the little field kit, and that'll get you through.
I bought a gigantic thing of baby wipes that went in my bounce box.
Right.
And I'd pull however many I thought I needed out, and I would take a pair of scissors and cut those in half and make like a double stack of it. So
Right.
almost like if you took baby wipes and folded them
Right.
in half and cut the seam.
And then put it in Ziploc.
Put that in a Ziploc freezer bag, and that's what I carried all the time. I don't think I ever had toilet paper.
Right.
And if I had been more than a couple of days out of town, wanted to feel a little bit more fresh with my wipe,
Right.
then I just put some rubbing alcohol on it too.
Right. Right.
It stings just a tiny bit at first,
I was gonna say, ooh.
but then you feel fresh.
Yeah.
Okay, so this had way too much for me to try and cram into one episode. So later this week, we'll be squeezing out episode 7B, titled To Be Decided. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this so far. There's lots more good stuff to come. More dirty stories, of course. Anyway, find us on Facebook. Call in for the contest. Call up. I want to give away a free book. Anyway, we'll talk more this week. Bye.
I'm not talking to the microphone too loud or.